Hello everyone, my name is Rakha Yavindra Arian and I am from University of Groningen. Here today I will be discussing a bit about my paper, which is Economic Incentives and Execution of Policies, their environmental impact in developing countries. So, starting off, in 2022, Indonesia generated 6 million tons of plastic waste. And the year before, Indonesia contributed 6% of all plastic waste emitted to the ocean. In 2016, government applied a plastic bag levy policy in 23 regions to reduce the amount of plastic waste. Various studies acknowledge that economic incentives do influence waste reduction. However, these studies tend to search for economic incentives given by policies and laws for the reduction of waste, instead of the economic disincentives that Indonesian government put out in 2016. Thus, this study will try to add to the current literature by understanding the relationship between economic incentives from individual organization and waste reduction, while also understanding the efficiency of environmental policy in reducing waste generation. In this study, I also try to answer the underlying research question of, do economic incentives from non-governmental waste management organizations purchasing plastic waste and the execution of a plastic waste reduction policy help Indonesia reduce the amount of waste generated? Moving on. Economic incentives. Economic incentives can be defined as any program that provides economic benefits to reduce the amount of pollution. Various literature focuses on the programs that were developed by the government. This program could be as the bottle bill or the deposit scheme, which will be discussed later on. However, the study will cover the economic incentives program provided by non-governmental organizations, such as waste banks. Moving on, execution of policy. So in 2016, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Indonesia issued a new policy for the implementation of paid plastic bags. However, the study conducted by Wang et al. Has shown plastic legislations can be inconsistent and different in each state. Thus, the execution of the policy that will be researched and discussed in the study refers to the regional implementation by the local government of this national policy, the policy of the paid plastic bags. So, thus, this study aims to test the effects of economic incentives and execution of policy on the reduction of waste. Referring to the theories and literature discussed in the previous slide and in the paper, the hypotheses that will be established are as follows. First one would be the null hypothesis, which is there is no significant effect of economic incentives given by non-governmental waste management organizations and execution of policy on the reduction of waste. Moving on. The study conducted by Levitt and Levital have discovered that economic incentives has drastically reduced the amount of plastic bottle waste. Another study regarding deposit scheme, economic incentives, was done by Hardesty et al., which has shown that economic incentives programs such as the deposit scheme in South Australia have managed to reduce the amount of waste by 3 times. Thus, referring to the previous studies, it can be the first hypothesis would be there is a significant positive effect of economic incentives given by non-governmental waste management organizations on the reduction of waste. A study conducted by Thomas et al. Has discovered that policies that enforce the plastic bag charge show widespread lower single-use plastic bag usage and an increase in reusable plastic bags through behavioral and psychological change. Wagner findings have also shown that levying fees and banning plastic bags has drastically reduced the amount of single plastic bags that are consumed by customers, which also increase the amount of reusable bags. So, the second hypothesis refers to these previous two studies can be gathered is that there is a significant positive effect of the execution of policy on the reduction of waste. So, methodology. So the method in this paper would be it would utilize the quantitative. Furthermore, there will be it will also utilize multiple linear regression and also individual linear regression, which will be further discussed later on. Now, the independent variable. The independent variable of economic incentives is measured by the amount of financial benefits given by each region's non-governmental waste banks, and the data that was gathered was primary data. It was directly gathered from the non-governmental waste banks themselves. This can go through surveys or opening their websites and socials to find these data. The secondary independent variable is this variable measures whether a specific region in Indonesia has the implementation and the execution of the paid plastic policies that are being used. The data sources that were used were secondary. These data were gathered from government databases and also news outlets. As for the dependent variable, the reduction in waste is the dependent variable of the study. It is a variable that measures the reduction in waste from 2021 to 2022 for each city and regencies. Reduction of waste data can be gathered from Sistem Informasi Pengelolaan Sampah Nasional, SIPSN, which provides secondary data on the amount of waste that was reduced from the previous year. As for the control variable, it is the population density. This variable can be measured by dividing the total of population of a region by the total land area in that region. Population density data in Indonesia can be gathered from Badan Pusat Statistik, or BPS, which is the National Statistics Center body of Indonesia. And the collected samples, there is 43 different cities and regencies that will be analyzed to find the relationship between economic incentives and their impact on the reduction of waste. And there are 65 different cities and regions that will be observed and analyzed to understand the relationship between the execution of policies and its impact to the reduction of waste. The results of the research would be in economic incentives using the multiple linear regression. There is the significant value in ANOVA would be 0.55 and the coefficient would be 0.511. And the individual linear regression have a ANOVA significance value of 0.713 and a coefficient of 0.479. As for the execution of policy, in the multiple linear regression, the ANOVA significant value is 0.55 and the coefficient value is 0.009. And in their individual linear regression, it has an ANOVA of 0.233 and coefficient of 0.09. Thus, the results indicate that the null hypothesis was unable to be rejected in the multiple linear regression and on the every independent linear regression. This is due to how there is not enough statistical significance and evidence to support the rejection of the null hypothesis. Thus, to conclude, the results contrast various studies in which economic incentives can influence and reduce plastic waste that is generated. These contrasting results may be due to the little study regarding this type of economic incentives, such as provided by non-governmental organizations like waste banks. Thus, to conclude, the study aims to find the relationship between economic incentives and execution of policy to the reduction in waste, in which the results show that there was no significant statistical evidence to support the claims. There are limitations in this paper, such as one would be the small sample size. One major limitation that is present is the lack of data and variability to support the economic incentives variable. As there are only 43 variables, it is considered to be a very small sample to find any significance in the relationship between variables. Another limitation would be the limited measurement, as this study heavily focused on the price of plastic bag waste to measure the economic incentive variable. Lastly, clustered observation. So an additional limitation that is present in the study is that some regions are not thoroughly investigated and observed, and some regions are the observations are more clustered and more focused on. Thus, these three are the main limitations in the paper. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.